What's up, man? Glad we got that all ironed out now, and hopefully we have audio for the folks whenever we're done recording this.
Yeah, technical difficulties again. I don't know whose fault that was. I think it was just the ether, the universe was. We're being tested. God was testing us. It was the devil.
The government might be trying to shut us down and censor us. I think that might be what's happening, right?
Most likely.
That's what it is. They know we were trying to record a podcast today, and with our massive following, they're worried about the message that we're spreading.
Right.
They don't want us to topple. They don't want us to topple the Illuminati. So.
I know, because they are telegraphing their shots, and we see them coming from a mile away. So we're not backing down. They're gonna have to take this show down, IP address and all. You know how much that would suck though if they really did crack down on all that stuff and.
Podcast? I sent you that article. I sent you that article, right? Like, it was a couple weeks ago,
was
maybe
so
2 or 3 weeks ago.
That was so fucked up.
And just to let the folks know what we're talking about, it was I don't remember exactly what it said. It was along the lines of podcast is the one area where I can't remember how they phrased it, but it was basically alluding to the fact that, you know, bigotry and all this can hide in podcast in plain sight, and it needs to be addressed, more or less, is what the article was stating. And it's like, all right, well, you're really, really not about free speech if you're going around writing articles like that.
Yeah, it really lumped up. It specifically named a couple of, I wouldn't say podcasts, but
I guess since we're talking about it, let me just go ahead and pull it up. It's in our text messages right here.
Yeah, I'm actually looking it up on my on the iMessage right now, trying to find it. But I can't remember if it was before or after that funny Ja Rule basketball video that I sent you.
That was, and if you guys haven't seen that one, go look that up.
Yeah,
for sure. Oh my God.
Here, man, I'll screen record it for the audience real quick and let them see it. So if you subscribe to our Patreon, you can see this on the video, and you can enjoy it with us in person on your big screen, because I know you got that 5K out there. 5K TV. All right.
5K,
start sharing.
4K TV.
Dude, look at this.
Let me see it. I don't see your screen here, Dylan.
Oh, you don't see it?
No, I think you're just watching Ja Rule miss a bunch of shots by yourself here.
Okay, sorry for the audio. I hit share screen.
We're just having technical difficulties all the way around this time.
You know, it's probably because it loaded it up on Safari, and Safari has that feature where it doesn't let you screenshot and share stuff. Yeah, so.
Well, go look up the video of Ja Rule.
Missing a shit ton of shots.
Like he didn't make a single shot, and he's in like an arena full of people, and he's just smiling the whole time. He's just like missing everything. It like I'd have been so embarrassed. I'd have just walked out after like the 5th missed shot.
Yeah, it's like a feature halftime show where Ja Rule is gonna be there at a basketball game, like some high school gym. And he's the selling point. Everyone spent $12 on a ticket to go watch the
Ja Rule sink a bunch of baskets, and that did not happen.
Yeah, the Cacasopy Cardinals lost that night anyway, or whoever was playing. Yeah, I didn't see that link scrolling through our text, but it was a fucked up article.
I got it. Okay. Yeah, it says extremists exploit a loophole in social moderation podcasts. And, you know, and it goes on to talk about major social platforms have been cracking down on the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories in the lead up to the presidential election, and expanded their efforts in the wake of the January 6th Capitol riot. But Apple and Google, among others, have left open a major loophole for this material, podcasts. And then it goes on and it talks about basically how podcasts are feeding the fire of these crazy conspiracy theorists that are causing the extremism in America. So,
yeah, and they specifically name a couple of videos that I know that I've watched. I'm not crazy about the channels, but I've watched them, dude. It's the complete opposite of how they're being described. And it's really crazy to witness this in real time because I personally have watched one of these channels and they're named in that article as right wing, like domestic terror, conspiracy theory, danger, 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 misinformation, bullshit. It's like, dude, these are not
I mean, are
what they're
these just
saying.
channels where they're just like talking about theories, or are they actually calling for action, right? Like action,
Can
like
you?
what happened on January 6th? Are they?
I can speak for one of them. Most of those names I know, and I think a couple of those guys have been interviewed on podcasts, and it's never anything like that. They're just discussing pyramids or Anunnaki or how the global cabal is, and then connecting to the Pope. And
That's all harmless, right? Like, there's
yeah,
no
I mean,
reason to censor any of that.
it's
That's
almost like
it's fun talk.
archaeological.
We talk about that type of shit, right? And
Yeah,
we're not going
exactly.
around organizing to violent mobs to storm our state capitals
Yeah,
or
that's the
anything
stuff they
crazy
put
like
in.
that, you know?
They make it seem like that, but these channels they're not even close to that. But it's weird because people into that got into QAnon,
Yeah.
and then QAnon's been politically shit on, which rightfully so. But it connects back to these avenues of alternative information you don't get from establishment. So somebody like doesn't even believe QAnon like me, I watch some of these videos and like them. It's like, how the fuck does this? That article was just obvious. Can you read the names of the
Yes.
videos? One of them's just like a documentary, like homemade documentaries on YouTube about. It's not even a podcast. There's no like person in it. It's like a homemade documentary of, underwater civilizations and ancient alien technology and like,
So it's, okay, so they go on one podcaster, Red Pill 78, called The Capitol Siege a staged event in a January 11th episode of Red Pill News. The day before the Capitol riot, a more popular
they
podcast.
called it a staged event. That's what they did in that podcast.
Yeah.
And it's still coming out that that was a staged event because those police just let him in there. There was professional cameras. They documented the whole thing. It wasn't rough iPhone footage caught from people on the street. It was fucking organized to the T.
So do you
You
think
know,
it's a staged event?
well,
Uh,
there's so much video of the cops just letting it happen.
so do
And
you think that, but here's the thing, do you think it was all planned, or do you think that, hey, the cops were there, they're Trump supporters too, and they're just kind of like, "Well, fuck it, you know what, go ahead, go in," or was it, you see what I'm saying? Was it a more of a situation like that, or was it like this thing that was all planned out and staged in advance?
you mean, did it happen on the fly where cops were like,
Right.
ah, whatever?
Well, right. It's
Uh,
like if those cops were like maybe sympathized with what that the mob was, you know, all about in terms of they thought the election was
I see.
stolen, just let them in. Yeah, this is. You see what
I
I'm saying?
I see that, but at the same time, guards sent in to protect the Capitol when a siege January 6th has been talked about protecting, and they just stand down. Who the fuck are these cops that are hired to protect? You want those people protecting the White House? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
true.
but it's like there's uh, just high level camera footage and documentation from it. Did you see the video? The guy with the horns that went past the cops and sat on the judge's chair, like felony after felony after stuff you don't
Yeah,
do. Like the cops, like, oh, whatever. And
I did
then
see that, and they're like, I saw one video where
what
like,
what I'm getting at is it's not
right, it could
harmful
be
to say
to
I think it was
discuss
a
it.
staged event.
Right, sure. I mean, there's a lot of
Red Pill
evidence that could
78.
point to that. Sure,
I
and
haven't
there's
actually looked into it, but it's super fishy how and then the media paints it as protests and riots, but the whole summer BLM protests where people were destroying businesses and hurting people was, whether you think it's justified or not because of the police violence, that's always the counter argument. Well, look what happened to spark it. It's like, yeah, but the media is painting it as peaceful protest. Remember that?
right.
It was peaceful protests
It's
and
certainly a
people were
difference in
destroying it.
tone.
And
Definitely a
then,
difference in tone in the way it's covered.
yeah, so that whole perspective shift of like, oh, the media is wanting this to look this way, and everybody who says it was staged is now banned and censored. It's obvious that there's some narrative trying to be controlled, and it's like, even if you don't think it was staged, you should be smart enough to be like, hey, it's super fishy. I'm not going to say someone's a right-wing terrorist because they think it was staged. I can get that.
Right.
Like, it was a really fishy thing. And that's all I'm saying.
They're going hard now too because of that whole January 6th event. They're going hard against like.
I'm seeing photos of. Is there an insurrection in Ohio right now?
I don't know. You just is there?
I saw photos of someone saying the insurrection in Ohio. So much for an insurrection, and it was a picture of like these people getting professional photo ops in the middle of like gas grenades. So like media and undercover media is in there to capture it, because there's COINTELPRO, MK Ultra style people, which is our topic today. And that's what I'm getting at is, yeah, it's totally realistic to believe, and it's most likely the case, that these things are fueled by undercover government agents to disprove a certain movement and get away from the truth, just like they did with the Manson murders.
Yeah.
And the hippie movement and Helter Skelter. And then they came out and destroyed all the MK Ultra documents and said we didn't find anything. And now everybody's scared of drugs and hippies, and they totally abolished that movement from the inside out. And there's no reason to think that that hasn't continued. And this is that same dynamic, you know? People want a fair election, and they show up to express their voice, and what happens? QAnon and the guy with the horns, and everybody gets into the Capitol, and there's professional media, and everyone's there capturing it. The news is immediately like QAnon, right-wing Trump supporters, conspiracy theorists, like these videos here are ruining America. And now there's like no conversation for free election. It's none of that, because it's this like same COINTELPRO dynamic. And
yeah, if you
watch says it's staged, you can't fucking deem him a terrorist, because it's so. This stuff is probably the case if you pay attention to how things work.
Right. Okay, yeah, I mean, no, you're good. You're good. I was gonna say, just if you watch the news right now as well, like they are going hard against like right-wing conspiracy terrorists. Yeah, I think
domestic terrorism. The whole NSA Security Act after 9/11, infringing on rights and spying on people, and endless wars in the Middle East and propaganda against the Middle East so that we can keep based on terrorism. That whole thing is now coming here based on domestic terrorism against right-wing conspiracy theorists who speak out against the system. And it's starting now. And I think we talked about on the last time how serious it gets with Twitter censorship, with the whole Saudi Arabia thing, how they were tracking down dissidents on Twitter and arresting them. And that's where this is going with the big tech censorship, and people that are sleeping don't see that. They think, oh, it's a private company, they can do what they want. It's like, pay the fuck attention and don't allow that. Like, don't suck Rachel Maddow's dick off. She's a CIA agent, you know?
Yeah, I listened to that episode where that
maybe
guy
she's
who did that movie about Mark Khashoggi, and how they use the Twitter to basically control the people.
Yeah, but that's where this is going, and that's what all this dynamic is: the media controlling narratives and the government pushing big tech to control narratives. And what happens at the end of the day is they take away your livelihood. They take away your YouTube monetization, your YouTube channel. They crack down on Discord, where people are having, that's supposed to be the new thing. They pull Parler from all the play. You can't go anywhere and make your money as whatever online, like a journalist,
like an alternative media journalist.
Yeah,
right? You have to submit to the system, and you have to follow along with the dialogue that they're presenting you, the narrative that they want you to present. Otherwise, they will take your livelihood. They'll censor you. They'll do whatever they can.
Shut down your PayPal.
Right.
Shut down your Patreon.
So.
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Poor connection. Switch to audio only. Fuck you. I might be too far from my... No, they've been having some problems lately. Yeah, they had an internet outage 2 days ago, so it might just be spotty. But Yeah, I forgot what I was talking about, but
We're talking about
it,
them being able to take away your livelihood.
livelihood, your PayPal, your Patreon, the Discord, everywhere you go to just like make a dollar talking about events of the world. I mean, even just because like people get articles taken down that aren't bad. Like I
Right.
can't say it more simply. They're not bad. It's like a science article or
Or
a
like
real deep.
all these other journalists that are like criticizing these alternative news media outlets because they are like exploring different narratives, right? Different ways, different perspectives on how the current events are playing out, right? Rather than
Current.
what the mainstream media, the mainstream media's perspective, which if you go on any news channel, it's always the same, right? So it's kind of a disservice to journalism a little bit that you
And
have journalists out
humanity.
there doing that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
humanity, and it ultimately can lead to human rights violations and stuff in the long term if you let this type of shit slip far enough. If you look at
yeah,
what it's done in other countries, let's hope it would never ever happen here.
like
But
the domestic terrorism is what I was getting at earlier. It's coming here now under the guise of crazy QAnon conspiracy theory that's violent because people went to the Capitol and the cops let them in.
yeah,
And like a few people got hurt. I'm not saying anything was right, but you don't forget the BLM protests where the same media was painting it as peaceful protests. And
right.
people's businesses, like Sam Tripoli talks about on his block where his office is located, businesses were destroyed, looted, and burned. And the people that took part in it were people that he personally knew. And those are the same people that are okay with people like me and you who will be deemed like a right-wing extremist under these new domestic terrorism laws and banned. And now we have like livelihood issues because
I,
Patreon won't support our 12 subscribers a month.
that'd be crazy because I don't know.
All because
I don't
I
even consider
sympathize
myself.
with.
I don't consider myself necessarily right wing either.
Exactly,
So
dude.
at all.
Exactly. It's just,
But I do not. I also do not blindly just kind of follow along with the narrative that's in the media. I know that there's more going on behind the scenes there.
yeah. And man, let's get into it because I feel
So,
like this is today's version of what happened in the 70s. MK
so
Ultra, right?
yep, MK Ultra. That's what we're gonna discuss today. A little bit of history about how dirty the CIA and our government really gets at times,
Hmm.
and which is why there's no reason to believe that they're not involved in shady shit like this today. So let's just talk a little bit about how MK Ultra started and kind of the environment and kind of the excuse that the government had to create this kind of horrific program. So back, I think it was August 30th, 1949, we found out that the Russians had acquired an atomic bomb, right? And they had done this via an international espionage ring that got their hands on the blueprints, right? And so this initiated the Cold War. Well, this also heightened the intelligence war between the two countries as well. Right, there's this idea that kind of was pervasive in the times that anyone could be a spy, and in the post-war years, the CIA had to come up with all these different schemes to try and get ahead, right? To try and get ahead of the communist regime. Right, there was this Bulgarian dissident named Georgy Markov that had fled the country because he had spoke out against communist government. So he took refuge in London. He was sitting on the bus one day. Someone passes, just a stranger, just passes by him and accidentally pokes him in the leg with his umbrella. Well, it turns out that umbrella had like a small pellet of resin in it, or ricin in it, and it ended up killing him a few days later, right? So this is the type of environment that they were living in back in this time, right? Where like everyone was walking around worried about that everyone else was a spy,
Yeah.
right?
That's I remember that portion. It was poison everything. They poisoned everything in that at that era. It was kind of the thing. Was it Sidney Gottlieb?
Sidney Gottlieb was the person who ended up actually running the program, the MK Ultra program, right?
Who was the
And I'm,
counterpart to Sidney? Alan Grant.
Dr. Abram.
He was the guy that was poison everything.
Well,
Darts,
he was
bullets.
working on aerosols, right?
Mm.
Aerosols for the war. Let me actually find them in my notes here. I think it was Harold Alexander Abramson. He was an American physician, allergist, and pediatrician, which is creepy as fuck. He was remembered as an early advocate of therapeutic LSD, and he played a significant role in the CIA's MK Ultra program to investigate the possible applications for LSD. In 1942, the Long Island Biological Laboratories Research Project, which was headed by Abramson, was established in part with funds from the Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation and support from the War Department. Let's see here.
You mean the government
So he
funded
ended up,
that?
yeah, he was on military leave from 1943 to August of 46. And during that period, he earned the U.S. Army's Legion of Merit for vital contributions to the chemical warfare service and thus to the war effort for work involving aerosol penicillin, which I guess it would be a good thing, right? For protecting our soldiers. And then he was at Mount Sinai Hospital in 53, and he proposed an $85,000 study to the CIA on the effects of LSD on unwitting hospital patients. This was the same year that the MK Ultra program was established. Funding for the project was funneled through the Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation. So there you go. Kind of a little bit of he was one of the counterparts to Sidney Gottlieb in the initial stages of the MK Ultra program. Now, at the time, you also did you have some notes or anything you wanted to jump in on there?
I do, but it's proxy information. It's more kind of connected with the Manson murders.
Cool.
At
I
this
don't
whole
actually.
time frame.
It's perfect because I didn't really there. See, the thing with MK Ultra is it was such a wide-reaching program. Excuse me, got that
You are
Rona.
excused.
It was such a wide-reaching program. I think they had up to like 169 sub-projects. My number might be a little off there, but they
Damn.
had a bunch of sub-projects of
Project
MK Ultra.
Artichoke.
Project Midnight Climax, which we will talk about a little bit.
That was the precursor to Artichoke, right? Midnight Climax, yeah. And then that turned into Artichoke once they were like, fuck it, let's do it. Basically.
Yep.
But we'll get to that because I don't remember the details.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't remember the details because I got a bunch of other badass notes that I got in my dome.
Good.
Carrying them around encrypted. You got to plug in right here.
Like Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So that was just a little background on like how the program started, right? So we were just a super paranoid nation, right? And we had
From communism.
From communism, right? And then the director of the CIA at the time was this wonderful guy named Alan Welsh, and he was the first civilian director of the CIA and its longest serving director to date, actually. He was the head of it during the Cold War. He oversaw the 1953 Iranian I don't know how to say that, coup d'etat, and the 1954 Guatemalan coup d'etat. Now, did you actually look into either one of those?
No.
So do you know anything about those? I thought that was I thought those the coup d'etat. Talking that like a Cajun boss.
Coup d'etat.
Coup d'etat. Yeah, those are both. I looked into both of those as well, and they were both kind of fucked up here. We basically went into Iran and Guatemala, and so in the case of Iran, there was this oil company that was owned by BP, and the Iranian people had elected this democratic leader, and they were basically fucking with their money with that oil company. So we went in and helped them overthrow their democratically elected leader to reinstate the dictatorship that's there. So I thought that was kind of fucked up. And we did the same thing in Guatemala for some fruit company,
And we're
right?
trying to
Just
do
for
it
money.
now in Venezuela, and the people elected, who was it, Juan Guaido, but all of our media paints him as this brutal dictator. So we need to have this other guy. So like our people are like, yeah, America, go save the day again. Meanwhile, you got the cute guy from Office, Jim, as the CIA guy for Venezuela, the TV show on Amazon, just running propaganda in front of, because that's what's happening now is the Venezuelan coup d'etat. We can't stay out of other people's business. And over here, the
Yeah,
media is
fucked up.
lying to us. The same media that's going to paint you as a right-wing extremist Trump supporter, domestic terrorist,
I'm not at all.
because you coughed and went, I got the Rona. I got the
Yes.
Rona. Like, he didn't even say COVID-19. He's disrespecting it. Doesn't take it serious. He's a dissident. Get him!
Get the dissident.
That's
So,
really fucked up.
So we did that in two countries. So this was the guy. He was part of the CIA who helped both of those situations. He was also running the Lockheed U-2 aircraft program, and then ultimately the MK Ultra program, as well as the Bay of Pigs invasion. He was fired by JFK over the Bay of Pigs invasion, but he ended up being one of the members of the Warren Commission that investigated the assassination of JFK.
Mm. That's funny
Anyway,
because the JFK murders get tied into the Charles Manson murders. Because one of the scientists that led the mice research that was the foundation for the Summer of Love, we'll get to that. He was one of the, I might be mixing it. He was one of the psychiatrists that examined Jack Ruby right before he testified, and he had him alone in his cell, and Jack Ruby went crazy. He came out and said he suffered an acute schizophrenic break or something, and then his testimony at trial was unhinged, quote unquote, and they deemed him as crazy, and then he had no recollection of it afterwards. So that one of that same guy was connected to the science and the parole officer and all that shit with Manson.
they dosed his ass with LSD.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Stick around for that. Who I'm excited. Keep going. I'm pumped up about this.
All right, so I was just giving background on Alan Dulles, and then kind of why we started rolling into this this MK Ultra project in the first place. So he actually got the idea because he had heard stories of American prisoners being brainwashed. God damn,
Horsed.
washed.
Brain horsed.
Tiffany makes fun of me. I do have a speech impediment. I struggle with saying
Brainwashed.
brainwashed. I have to really think hard whenever I say a word like that because I mess the A up. You'll notice that a lot when I'm in my speaking.
I actually
Anyway,
never noticed it. I think you speak very clear.
Well, I have to really think about it before I say a word like that to pronounce it correctly. Tiffany makes fun of me all the fucking time about it. Anyway, so American prisoners were getting brainwashed in the Korean War. So that's where he'd got the idea from.
Korean War.
He warned in a speech at Princeton in 1953 of Soviet brain warfare. So based on these concerns, he had given the CIA the green light to research what kind of drugs, hypnosis, electroshock therapy, things like this that could be used to basically control people's minds. So at the time, LSD was a new drug, thankfully for the CIA. Just a little brief history of LSD. It was Albert Hoffman, a chemist working for Sandoz Pharmaceutical, synthesized LSD.
Where at?
For the first time in 1938 in Basel, Switzerland.
Switzerland, baby. That's what it was. Giant mnemonic. They reference Switzerland when talking about Big Pharma. She's like the leader of Swiss. I was like, oh shit, they're like they knew back then that because Kobe Bryant. Real quick, you want to hear a Kobe Bryant truth bomb?
Let's hear Kobe Bryant.
Now, I did confirm this with the CEOs. I did look up. It's been reported. Okay, I did like a super surface investigation just to see if what I heard was like even true.
Legit, yeah.
Shout out to Bishop Larry Gators. Have you heard him?
I have.
Yeah. He was talking about Kobe. He was suing high-tech pharmaceuticals for lacing his Black Mamba supplements with opium.
With opium?
With opium. They were lacing it with opium.
Why? What would be the incentive for them to do that? For them to lace it with opium?
To get people addicted to opium, because there's this large reserve of opium from what we're harvesting from the Middle East, the wars. They've been bringing this overseas. The CIA has been bringing it in, getting people on heroin. They did it in 1925. Opium with the Chinese in San Francisco. And they used it to paint the Chinese and the ghettos as a detriment to society and bad and not trustworthy and violent. And it worked. It allowed the police to crack down on the Chinese and deport civilians and all kind of shit. And the public was afraid of the Chinese in the ghettos, but really opium smokers were peaceful. So when you're talking about how the government undercover works to bring these drugs in the first place, because it's not like they show on, TV where it's just like gangbangers running it in old El Caminos and stuff. It's government bringing it in body bags of dead soldiers in Vietnam. You know what I'm saying? With the help of Bill Clinton. Remember that? So when you talk about that, you have all this fucking heroin. It's like corn syrup. What the fuck do we do with it? Put it everywhere. Get everyone addicted. Just put it fucking everywhere. Make people want that. That's what I'm thinking. But they were putting it in the Black Mamba supplements. And they lost the lawsuit. And days before Kobe's copter went down, one of the CEOs, Jeff Steibel, was taken to jail. And his testimony for trial was the following week against the other guys. Because there was also a lawsuit about they wanted Black Mamba, the copyright. And he was like, no, that's my shit.
Holy
so there
fuck.
Yeah, a lot of stuff went down. And like one of the same guys that was in charge of all this over here in his life was the same guy that made sure he went to this therapist after his injury or something. And there is where he got a sexual assault lawsuit. So like the same guy was choreographing fucked up shit in his life while he was suing them and winning a case against them lacing it with opium. And then he died in the helicopter crash. And now the lawsuits are gone.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
so you think he was assassinated?
I do, man. I don't think that was an accident.
You had a bet on it?
Yeah,
That's
I do.
Fucked up. He had his daughter with him, though.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck about people. They took down the towers. You know what I'm saying? I think there's MK Ultra style mind control going on for these mass shootings because these guys come out of nowhere with all kind of weapons and security clearance, just like with Manson. These fucking guys just keep letting them go.
Yeah, Manson he kept getting let out of jail over and over.
All of these guys that do these terrorist attacks are people that have these rep sheets where it's like you didn't fucking get the guy beforehand. You just kept letting him go with briefcases of guns and ammo up a security elevator to the fucking top floor right below the 3 floors that the Prince of Saudi Arabia owns at the Las Vegas building. Prince of Saudi Arabia owns the top 3 floors or something. They were there and their helicopters left the roof of the building that night after the shootings. There were eyewitness reports of like helicopters leaving, black helicopters right after.
Jesus.
Yeah, so it's not just some redneck that's like, I love Trump, and he's been collecting guns.
Yeah, it's a little bit more advanced than that.
Yeah, they're all on drugs, the kind the CIA brings in, and they like. Anyway, I'm not a right-wing domestic terrorist. I'm just saying I think stuff is going on.
You have to say that after everything now.
Yeah.
I'm not a right-wing terrorist. I just think there's some shady shit happening here.
Yeah, and I don't deny people died because they did. And that's what I was saying. They don't give a shit. They'll kill. And the day he died was the day of some Hebrew Kabbalistic ritual in which a young virgin is sacrificed and his daughter was killed. So like even when you put this occultic Hebrew Kabbalah magic thing over it, it all lines up too because there was 9 people on board.
Man, you remember? That was kind of one of those things where like I remember exactly where I was at when I heard about it. Was it
But
like that for you?
yeah, he had I was in my apartment. I was off that morning. It was cold or something. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, but you
Um,
remember like exactly. It was like a 9/11 type thing. Like I remember exactly
Not
where I was.
exactly.
I do. Well,
I was at my apartment. I got it on Twitter.
I was driving back from Delaware with Tiffany and Penny, and I was in Tennessee somewhere. And Tiffany's like, "Hey, Kobe Bryant just died." I was like, "What? What the fuck?" And it was just such a shock. You're like, "What is
Yeah,
this super?" And then you find out it's a helicopter crash. But anyway,
but
to continue.
he's got Hebrew background. He grew up in a Jewish Hebrew school, Kobe Bryant.
Right.
And all those children's books he was writing before he died were all saturated with Hebrew style magic. If you go and look at the covers and the storylines, it's super magic.
Hmm.
He was really magic in Hebrew Kabbalah, and all the Hebrew magic, Hebrew Kabbalah stuff fits over the death if you want to look at it as a sacrifice. And it's a helicopter crash. Even the owner and the model of the helicopter is skeptical because it goes back to Switzerland, which is what I was saying. Switzerland, where LSD was made, big pharma, it's all coming out of Switzerland, baby. That's the hub of all of it. Something's going on in Switzerland.
Yes. Well, Switzerland also has. Don't they have some huge banks and everything there as well?
Yeah, the Deutsche Bank from the
Right.
Nazis. Yeah. Good, man.
So,
Yeah, pull up any one of his children's books. He's got a
that's what I
weird
was.
one with a tree. He's got a weird one with a tree that's one of the most.
I mean, even the artwork on the front of this one looks kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it's all Hebrew Kabbalah stuff, the magic books he's writing for kids. The serpent,
Yeah, I thought that was a serpent at first, but
the tree, the above, below. What'd you search?
just Kobe Bryant children's book. Or
Try to go to his website because that's not the. I mean, those are look the beast below the bottom, all that weird stuff. Yeah, that purple one. Click on that purple one. I think that's a
this
good
one.
one. Yeah, a good example of how magic it is. The tree of Ekrof, Epoka, created by Kobe Bryant. Who knew he was so well read on Hebrew Kabbalah?
Yeah. Anyway,
And
you
look at
want
the
the
logo. Look at that spirally logo. That's an
what it?
old ancient logo, like the swastika style logo in the corners.
Yeah, I see that.
Represents the spiral of the galaxy and all that stuff. But yeah, he was writing super Hebrew Kabbalah magic kids books too.
Yeah. So that's a crazy. That was a crazy turn of events there,
Mm-hmm.
where he was suing the pharmaceutical companies, and he had won 2 days prior to his death. You're saying? I didn't
Yeah, it
look
was.
into that thread. I didn't look into that. So
I,
I knew something. I knew I'd heard something about him with beefing with pharmaceutical companies, but I didn't know why. And that's wild that they were putting opium in his supplements.
yeah. Why the fuck would they do that? And his logo is a spider, so it's real occultic when you start breaking it down. Someone like
Yeah.
me who likes to look and be like, "Oh shit, they put a little signal there." There's a lot there, you know. But Switzerland's the hub of all the crooked drug shit. LSD, MK Ultra came out of there.
LSD, right? So it was started by Albert Hoffman in 1938 in Basel, Switzerland, while looking for a blood stimulant. Its hallucinogenic effects were not known until 43 when Hoffman accidentally consumed some, and it was later found that an oral dose of as little as 25 micrograms, which is equal in weight to a few grains of salt, is capable of producing vivid hallucinations.
Mm.
So at the time, the drug was new, so the CIA started thinking that this would be able to open up people's minds to allow them to take control of it. So at the same time that the nuclear Cold War was going on, there was kind of an LSD Cold War going on because there were actually reports in throughout the 40s. Thank you for the heart there, Dylan.
Yep.
There were reports throughout the 40s of the Soviet Union trying to buy up the world's supply of LSD. So the CIA said, "Fuck that, we're gonna do it instead," and and get ahead of you guys.
Mm.
And the CIA thought that they might be unleashing a bunch of sleeper agents into the field based on these reports. And then we started the MK Ultra program. So that was kind of the whole environment of where the program started from, the director of the CIA at the time, and kind of his mindset around it and why they would even allow such a program to take place, right? That was their excuses.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
weird because it's a super infringement on human rights because a lot of the testing wound up happening on prison mates.
We haven't even gotten into that. That's just the background of how it started. But the infringement on human rights was probably the most shocking thing that, as I researched this stuff. I knew I knew a little bit about MK Ultra prior to this episode, but hadn't really dug into like the different projects and the things they did to people. And they did some really dark shit in this program. And we don't even really know everything that they did because after it was announced, the documentation had already been shredded. They had already destroyed all the documentation for the project before it was announced.
Truth bomb right there,
So,
destroyed it all, man, isn't that? And then they came out and
so
said,
we just know this from the anecdotal stories, the stories from the victims, and I guess defectors within the program, and also Seymour, what's his name? The guy who originally broke the story, I think in '74, I believe it was. Seymour Hirsch was his name. He was the New York Times writer. Anyway, they had already destroyed most of the documentation by that point. So who knows really how bad things got. So just some examples, right? And we'll start going deeper into some of these. So they did things like they brainwashed a woman to try and get her to shoot another woman, which was fucked up. They tried to implant a trigger in a subject's mind so that they could have them go out and plant a bomb. And like you said, some of them were volunteers. Some of these people were volunteers, but some of them were also prisoners. James Whitey Bulger was actually one of the prisoners who agreed to do experiments in exchange for some bonus time. He had later said that he experienced horrible periods of living nightmares and even blood coming out of the walls, guys turning to skeletons in front of him. He saw a camera change into the head of a dog. He felt like he was going insane. And later in his life, he said that it gave him permanent brain damage. So it sounds like they were just dosing him up so much LSD, he was kind of going insane. Let's see here. Later on, testimony from a CIA operative stated that some private companies were working with the CIA on Project MK Ultra, and they didn't even know it. So that's kind of crazy there. So there's probably still private companies unknowingly working for the CIA, thinking that it's they're getting funding and things from a different source. So that's kind of crazy. Some of the patients were mental patients, and that's where it kind of gets dark, right? Mm-hmm. In particular, when we talk about Sub Project 68, which is also known as the Montreal experiments. So those experiments were initially aimed at aimed to treat schizophrenia by changing memories and erasing the patient's thoughts using Donald Ewan Cameron's method of psychic driving. And this, as well as drug-induced sleep-intensive electroconvulsive therapy, sensory deprivation, and thorazine. All of these experiments were conducted at the Allen Memorial Institute of McGill University between 57 and 64 by Cameron, and it was funded by the CIA as part of MK Ultra.
Wait, not at an institute, right? Not at like a nice college or nothing, or like a hospital, right?
Yeah, this is exactly where this was done at.
It makes me wonder when I'm driving through Denver, because Denver I know has got some weird stuff. They're so corporate. Denver's so corporate and go with the flow, and whatever the mainstream says, we'll do it. Like, wear 3 masks, and then now everyone's like, 3 masks. Like, okay. But anyway, at the Auschwitz hospital, sometimes I think, I wonder if there's a basement and if something's going on in there.
It's called the Auschwitz Hospital.
Yeah, like the Auschwitz Children's Hospital. There's like Jewish dedicated hospitals, you know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
and in Louisiana there's like Our Lady of Lourdes. It's like Catholic, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure
that's
they have
where.
some Jewish hospitals too, but a lot of hospitals here are like it's Jewish dead. And I'm not anti-Semite. I'm just saying these are like what you're saying. This institution that's like, whoa.
Yeah, this was an institution in Canada,
What was the name of
and
it?
the Allen Memorial Institute
Oh,
of McGill University.
okay.
And so these were patients that went there between 57 and 64. And these were not folks that signed up for this. They were
Yeah,
going there for mental help. And they
violating
got
human rights
experimented on.
at the
Right.
Memorial Hospital. Can you believe that shit?
Right.
Like, oh, Alan, what a great man, he died, and then like behind the curtain, like, take these pills, you fucking worthless, brain dead loser. Take them.
They're
Shoving them up
experimenting
their
on them.
ass and watching them. They're just in pain, writhing. Like, I just want help. And they're like, well, he shit himself 12 times today and falsely confessed to, like, whatever. That's
It,
good news.
it was really fucked up. So
Yeah.
so these patients they were mainly just diagnosed with depression or schizophrenia, and they were going in expecting, to get positive changes from the treatment. So they went in and they suffered severely. Um, Let me just see if I can find some of the specifics of the things he actually did. Hey, I'll just screen share because I went ahead and just clipped it from Wikipedia.
Yeah.
This is the doctor right here, Donald Ewan Cameron. All right, so treatment with the goal of inducing lifelong changes in humans, Cameron used different methods of depatterning and repatterning the brain. Um, they included psychic driving, drug-induced sleep. Already went over that, right? So for drug-induced sleep, Cameron used doses of Thorazine to put patients into an artificial coma. The drug-induced sleep, which took place in the sleep room, usually lasted from a few days up to 86 days, longer than expected by the patients. Uh, Cameron often combined the sleep periods with injections of hallucinogenic drugs, LSD, as well as administration of electroshocks and the playing of pre-recorded messages into patients' ears.
Suggestibility. That's why LSD was prized, because it increased
Right. Well,
suggestibility.
they were trying to break these people down. Electroconvulsive therapy, also known as electroshock therapy, was also used there, and it was used to treat psychological disorders like treatment-resistant depression. So they used electroshock therapy on these folks. Sensory deprivation. So patients were deprived of their senses by covering their ears, eyes, and/or skin. Patients were given little food, water, and oxygen, and instead injected with LSD in Curair to keep them in a paralyzed state. And then his psychic driving, right? So in order to repattern the brain, patients had to listen to specific recordings of Cameron repeatedly. This process took place for up to 16 hours a day, and over the whole period, messages could be repeated up to 500,000 times altogether.
God dang.
For the first 10 days, recordings contained personal negative messages, which were followed by 10 days of positive messages. Anxiety that would emerge in patients was encountered with heavy doses of sedating drugs such as sodium amytal and largactil.
Wow.
So yeah, that they did that. That was the treatment that these poor people went through um, when they went in there, just thinking they were going to go to a hospital to get mental help.
And all those documents
And the point
get
was
destroyed.
right, and the point was that they wanted to break them down mentally so they could build them up again. That's what they thought they were going to do with these experiments, but they did not.
And back to
Some
what you said earlier, all this to the public was under the guise of communism, because communists were brainwashed. The soldiers would come back
right,
brainwashed the same, and they would have to tear them down and build them back up again. So to the public, it's like, okay, at the Van Allen Memorial Hospital, they're doing the Lord's work. And then what they're really trying to do is start projects like COINTELPRO, where they can control our minds. they can pick out people like Charles Manson in prison and be like, this guy's perfect. He fits all the attributes of what we found in our studies that show like ambulatory schizophrenia is really susceptible to, it's called labile, Labile, where your morals can be broken down and changed. They like single out people that are labile, and then those are the ones that. But yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, like you know, a lot of these guys that have these pasts that have been in jail and monitored by FBI, and they don't do anything, and then they go shoot up a festival. It's like, it makes you wonder if they were handpicked from somewhere and just kind of intervene from afar, because that's what these undercover agents do. They dress as hippies. They intervened. They interjected themselves into like hippie circles, and I mean, on the street looking like them, becoming part of the group, you know.
Did you read that book about that new book that came out about Manson that was really about that, about
Chaos?
Yeah, the CIA. I think it's called Chaos, yes.
Tom O'Neill, yeah, that interview, yeah, that's where my info's coming from.
Okay, gotcha.
We might not get to mine today. That's fine. We can like double header Sunday night and then hit it again Wednesday. But keep going with what you got. I got to stop like at 12:30, but that's it.
You're good, man. So anyway, just to let you know what happened to those patients that he ended up treating.
Yeah.
By the way, which included children, which is disgusting.
Yeah.
They often suffered from amnesia. They had to relearn most of the skills that they had. Some of them were put in childlike states and even had to be potty trained again.
Whoa.
Family described them as even more emotionally unstable as before, and some of them were unable to live a normal life afterwards. There was actually one report, I think, of someone jumping out of the hospital, like the 5th floor hospital window, to their death after one of those sleep deprivation experiments too. So like they had actually people that died during treatment as well.
And then this stuff doesn't go reported on, and if it does, they're like, somebody jumped out the window because they were depressed. They left out the whole part with the experiments the 3 months before.
We also had, so other deaths that were associated with the MK Ultra that were definitely provable. You had Harold Blauer. He was checked into. Harold Blauer was I believe, a tennis player. He was checked into the New York State Psychiatric Institute in late '52, seeking help for depression following his divorce. While he was there, he was used as a test subject. They basically gave him MDA, which is kind of like MDMA, and he ended up having seizures, tremors, and ended up dying from that. So he was basically went into the hospital, same situation. Went in the hospital looking for help, depressed from a divorce, got experimented on, and died from it because he had an adverse reaction to the drugs they gave him.
Dude, that's murder.
So they fucking killed him.
Did he sign off on these experiments? He got okay.
No, he went in. Once again, it was one of those unknowing things. He went in for help, and they ended up, he just thought he was getting administered regular medicine at the hospital, but it turns out they were giving him MDA and then DMA and then MDPEA, and he had an adverse reaction to all of it and died. So could you imagine getting dosed up with you go in because you're depressed and you're just looking for help, and then you get dosed up with psychedelics? that must be a horrible way to go.
Yeah, just tripping your ass off under scientific scrutiny.
You're already depressed, and then you go in and then you start tripping, and then you start having seizures.
That's wild to point that out, because you go in for help to be fixed, and instead you get high-level scientists that are actively, in a high-level way, trying to break you.
Yeah.
In the same institution that from the outside public, they're helping people in there. That guy jumped out the window because he was crazy. That's why he went there, because he was crazy. Right? Nothing to see there. It's like they were trying to. How you gonna go to therapy and the dude's like, I'm gonna break this motherfucker.
And this is
Like, come
our
on, man.
this is our government.
It's crazy.
This is
Yeah.
our government.
I read an NP article that covered it they didn't really dig into it. It just swiped it off. It said, "Oh, conducted experiments, no records were found, and they didn't find anything." Because that's what the conclusion is. Like, oh, we didn't find nothing with MK Ultra. I mean, that's literally the official story. But they never found anything. They never like found anything with their experiments. So if you ask any Joe that might know anything, let me just say this: not long ago, like 2 years, if you would have brought up MK Ultra to me, I would have thought it was like a superhero movie from the 80s.
Right.
Or something like that. Because I just
Not
never
like super well
looked into
known.
it. I was
Right.
never taught about it. It just kind of came and went. I thought Malcolm X, also thought Malcolm X was just, I didn't realize he was like the other MLK Jr., like the underground real motherfucker. MLK was, I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just didn't know these. So you ask any Joe about MK Ultra, and they're like, oh yeah, that stuff. They never found anything. No, it didn't work. And then it's like, no, they
I
found a
know
lot
people
of shit.
died. They dosed unknown people. They experimented on prisoners. They experimented on mental patients. They experimented on children. You
The
had
reason
Frank.
they
They
shut it,
experimented on their own people. You have Frank Olson, right? We didn't even talk about Frank Olson.
yeah, like dosing up their parties.
Yeah. So Frank Olson um, was basically a bacteriologist, biological warfare scientist who ended up working in the MK Ultra program for the U.S. They ended up, whenever he started on that project, they basically dosed him and everyone that was out there with LSD, kind of like unknowingly, and he ended up having like all these mental breaks from getting dosed up, and they were getting concerned that he might spill the beans on MK Ultra, and so they killed his ass. They ended up killing him, like pushing his ass out a hotel window. Although it never came out that he was killed, they framed it as if it was suicide, but the dude ended up. I mean, he had wounds like to his face and everything like that indicated that like had gotten into an altercation before jumping out the window, and he had just washed and hung his socks, right? That's something you do before you go and jump out a window to kill yourself.
Washed.
And
He washed and hung his socks.
washed and hung his socks. Yeah, fuck you. I told you I struggle with that.
Yeah, but he did that and
Watch
then
this.
jumped out a window.
Whoa.
Yeah, I just remembered I made a new logo, but I'm still working on it.
I like that background.
Yeah, I'm gonna still work on it. Try to capture the Illuminati
So
Salati. Go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I was saying that was like the shorthand version of Frank Olson. Let me read through my notes. That was just going off the top of my head. Let me read through my notes here. He was one of the first scientists assigned to the secret U.S. biological warfare laboratories at Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland during the Second World War. He began working with a handful of colleagues who would accompany him throughout his career. One was Harold Abramson, which I talked about earlier, who was that American physician and pediatrician who got that $85,000 grant to study LSD at Mount Sinai in '53. So Frank Olson worked with Harold Abramson.
That's a nice
and
grant.
and others. Well, back then it's that
173,000. I would have been like 173,000. Okay, I'll spend 20,000 on a studio, and now let's go back to college.
He also worked with ex-Nazi scientists who had been brought to work on secret missions in the U.S. So that was Operation Paperclip. We have an episode on that. Check that out.
Yep.
And then for a time, they worked on aerosol technologies, ways to spray germs or toxins on enemies and to defend against such attacks. Olson later met with intelligence officers who had experimented with truth drugs in Europe.
You know, that's another thing, the biological weapons, because those experiments, there was like a lot of false confessions in the soldiers that came back from the Korean War.
Yeah.
And some of those false confessions involved them denying having used biological weapons. So it's like they use this for soldiers to come back and they tear them down and they build them back up. And the new soldier is like, I didn't do anything bad. I'm like, good. Say that in court.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
It's just sick that we do this type of stuff to our own citizens and soldiers.
It's even what, I almost am not bothered that the powers that be do it because I don't expect anything else to happen. Like, I don't expect psychopaths with power to act in any other way. What upsets me is that people fall for the propaganda. Like, people can't check out, you know? Like,
They
it
just
comes
don't have
down
the
to that.
time, man. They don't have the time. It's easy to turn the TV on and just let it tell me what I need to know, and
Yeah,
I
like,
don't have to look in anything.
because
And
that's what allows
I
all
gotta go to
this.
work. I gotta take care of my kids. I got shit to do around the house. Who gives a fuck about whatever? Right? I get it, but
Like,
it's important.
imagine if like the whole world woke up and just showed up for a rally, all
Oh,
in
see,
unison.
now you're speaking fucking dangerous, Dylan, because we're gonna get pulled down, brother.
Do you know what I
You
mean, though?
talking about
Like,
organizing?
that
No,
that
I do know what you. I get what you mean.
that's what allows all this stuff to happen, is that people
Allow
don't
it. Right.
know and don't care because the official story was that nothing happened.
Right.
And it's like when I think about those two, it's like, of course the powers that be are supposed to do evil shit. They're psychopaths and they never had a real job. But why the fuck does everybody fall for it? It's that simple. Just if the whole global light turned on, how the fuck can they keep doing this shit when everyone's like, hey, it's probably MK Ultra shit happening. Let's not trust the government. But instead, it's like, you're a right wing. And it's like there's this division. It's so simple. It's so simple for people. Just all you got to do is like wake up. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to research daily and vote a million times. It's just everyone just has to wake up and be like, no, no, not anymore.
Yeah. Just
It's like so
start.
simple, but
Well, I mean, we say it's simple, but
the
like I said,
concept is
like
simple.
the concept is simple, but like actually finding, trying to understand where to get information from that's not saturated in propaganda, is hard, right? It's hard for people nowadays, right? So that I
Yeah.
get that. I
Well,
do
I guess
get it.
that's what I mean is like it doesn't even come down to having to specifically. I think we talked about this a few episodes back. I might be repeating myself, but like you don't have to read all the right stuff and know the specific details. People just have to click and go, "Oh, it's all bullshit." This is all bullshit.
Yeah.
What's up is down, and what's down is up.
Right.
Like
It
it
has to
doesn't.
just, it has, you're, I get what you mean when you say it has to just click.
Yeah, because like me
Like,
and you
because
could we could disagree on
I could,
something.
right. And then also, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to say you could disassociate, you could watch like what the mainstream media is telling you, disassociate it and kind of see through,
That
right? Like what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah. And it's like if everybody got on that base level page and they just showed up to like occupy space in front of Capitol buildings with signs that says like no more BS until you give us free healthcare and declassify all the I don't know what I'm getting at, but it seems so simple. Like if people just clicked. But what I was saying was we could disagree on something, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because we're awake enough to like not fall for bullshit and to be able to have the conversation.
Right.
But the waking up process of having the conversation, people fall for the bullshit that makes them consider us conspiracy theorists and like wacky
Right.
or
I
like
get
alternative.
I get exactly what you're saying. Like they automatically put you in this bucket, and there's no conversation that takes place afterwards.
And that's most of the people, and that's because of what the official stories always are. Because they don't pay attention, they just absorb it peripherally from like, oh, here and there,
Right.
and then the celebrities come out and repeat all this stuff that the system makes them
Oh,
say.
it has to be true, right?
I mean, it's a great point. I heard that no one's discriminated more in Hollywood than a right winger.
It's true.
Like, who the fuck can have any views that aren't exactly what you're supposed to have when it comes to mainstream entertainment?
This is true.
Everybody's got to bend some kind of knee. So it's like, from every angle, people that don't pay attention are still getting bombarded with intentional propaganda to cut. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not an accident. They don't know and don't care.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
almost
like,
a religion, you know.
yeah. So, like, those people, all they have to do is click. Like, the details don't matter. They just won't. They, like, this conversation's. It's like the conversation happens and all the chaos stops, and then all the powers that be are like, oh fuck, we lost them. That's like all it would take.
Right. I get exactly what you're saying, but it's not easy. It's easy, but it's not easy. That's
Yeah.
Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Yeah, because I mean, imagine how detrimental it would be if you could actually have on mainstream media across the board a real conversation about, for example, the Vegas shooting. What really happened? Let's look at the eyewitness testimony. Let's not scrub it from the media, you know?
Right.
Let's look at this guy's history and really bring to account official agents who never brought him in. They just, like, for all their rap sheets and stuff, like the terrorists. These guys had rap sheets for 9/11. Like, they just fucking monitored him forever. Never did nothing. You know, like, you can't have this conversation because now you're a right winger.
Right.
Instead, if people just clicked, you could have the conversation and be like, yeah, people need to be held accountable. It would be a totally different thing for the powers that be if they know, fuck, we got to do due process on everything now.
Which is what should be happening.
Yeah, but, like, no one gets... I don't know, that was just my rant on how easy it seems like it would be for global corruption to stop, as if everyone just clicked.
Well, like I said, we wouldn't have a podcast if that was the case, to talk about this shit. But if it was that easy, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
Fuck. Okay.
Did
Well,
it's 12:30. Did you need a cut
Oh,
out?
it's 11. It's 11:30 my time. I meant 12:30 my time.
Okay, my bad. All right, cool.
Yeah. Sorry if I talked too much and didn't make any sense, but something you said, like, it's like every time we have these conversations, it always comes back to some official story that came from government institutionalized establishments that dismisses what actually happened, and then decades go by of everyone thinking nothing happened. Meanwhile, it's still happening in front of our eyes. Like, you know, the Capitol riots would be the most recent thing.
Right.
Something happened there. That wasn't just some people.
We need to look into that. Like, I need to do
like,
more.
there's a lot of fishy stuff, but you can't even, like, question it or have the conversation. You know, and you won't even get police and government agents to be held accountable for letting people cross boundaries in a government.
So you don't think those cops are just let them in are gonna be held accountable?
Will they?
I don't know. I figured they would definitely be held accountable.
I mean, there's a lot
especially the security guard that they have the video of them in the chamber, and where he's like, well, this is a sacred place, so try not to tear anything up. Like, oh, we're not gonna mess nothing up in here. It's like the security guards like talk like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, did that guy get prosecuted? Who was he? I mean, there's not just
some kind of trouble.
I mean, in that video, there's 2 guards, but, like, I mean, even just the guards, it doesn't matter. Like, somebody's responsible for such a fucking atrocious security job.
Yeah.
Because when you look at it, a riot is where you push through lines of police and destroy everything. The police just fucking let these people through to go walking around the building. We talked about that already, but I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either. I mean, so do you think Trump has any role in this? I mean, he was saying some shit that definitely riled those people up.
Yeah. You know
what I mean? Like, he was definitely riling them up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Now, I do think it's strange how, like you said, you have videos of them just kind of letting them walk by, letting them walk past, letting them walk around freely. It's like, what the fuck is that about? And
That's
I
not
think,
normal.
they say the reason is just they were outnumbered.
But the thing is,
There was,
they were talking for weeks about January 6th, and they were all over the news about something's gonna happen, National Guard, something's gonna happen, and fucking the lowest of the cops were there, and they stood down, and the media was like, "It's a fucking riot." It was
yeah,
like, whoa, 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 whoa. Is this planned ahead of time, and is the media ready for this narrative? Like, is this a game plan? Even though Trump riled up everyday people, that this government way of infiltrating movements to discredit them, I think, is what happened. Like some agents or some cops, somebody. It'll come out in 10 years.
yeah,
It'll be old
I'm
news,
sure.
and I'm okay
Now,
with being wrong. But I just think if you're,
yeah,
you should be able to. People should be able to click and
question,
wake
you
up,
should be able to
and
question it.
I should be able to have this conversation with everybody without them going, "You're fucking crazy."
Right. Well, it's just
Are
taboo to
you a?
even question the mainstream narrative around that.
Because let me
Super
reiterate,
tab- it's like I said, it's like a religion, dude. Like
yeah,
you get in trouble for going against. I don't even know how to articulate it, but you get what I'm trying to say. You get in trouble for saying anything or even questioning anything that comes out that's like the what is considered the uh, virtuous position to be in by the mainstream.
yeah.
If you
The
question
narratives.
anything other than that, you are a piece of shit. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're a right winger.
Like I love
Crazy.
whenever I see these juxtapositions of articles, like during the BLM riots. Now, let me just clarify. Number one, I didn't look extensively into the Capitol riots,
Right.
right? So I just know there was some
Either.
fishy stuff, and it should be okay to have that conversation. Number two, we should look into that stuff and do like an episode on it.
We should.
Number three, fucking God damn it! Did I forget what I was talking about again? Oh, I don't hate the BLM movement because it is from a good thing. The police violence and systemic racism,
Fuck
I
yeah.
believe that exists.
Yes. Definitely does.
I don't agree that people should be able to destroy businesses and hurt lots of people and force beliefs on other people while the police stand down and put out pallets of bricks for them to throw everywhere. And then the media calls it peaceful protests, while at the same time, something kind of less detrimental happens at the Capitol. And it was obviously the same thing where police stood down and let it happen. And then it was riots and protests from the same media. So, like, the people that fall for this juxtaposition of realities without thinking about it is the reason the world is the way it is.
It's true.
And then next, um,
Very well said.
Ron Paul, or Rand Paul, Ron Paul, he was attacked by a BLM Antifa mob. Like he was like surrounded, and I don't know if they physically attacked him, but
Rand or Ron?
Ron, I believe.
The older one?
I
That's the
think so.
dad. Rand is
Yeah,
the younger one. It's
I think it was Ron Paul, but he was like accosted on the street by like a mob of Antifa and stuff, and the media didn't give a fuck at all. And then now Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is talking about her close encounter. She's going on Instagram Live all the
I
time,
saw
and like,
I saw yesterday. There
and
was a
the
whole big news.
media,
There was a big news article
this,
thing. I was standing in my kitchen making my lunch, and I was watching her cry about the whole thing that happened on the 6th and how
yeah,
horrifying it was.
but the same
And
media,
look, I'm not saying it wasn't terrifying for them, like, right?
yeah,
Like, I'm sure that probably was fucking pretty scary. You got a bunch of people, a bunch of Trump supporters that probably fucking hate you roaming around the halls of the Capitol. I'm sure that was probably pretty terrifying,
but
right?
the same media, yeah, absolutely the same, and I'm sure Ron Paul was terrified too because
Exactly.
because
I
he
see the
because
juxtaposition is
yeah, because he knows, dude, everything's against me right now. These people could kill me, and the media is gonna be like, They did a good, you know what I mean? Like he knows he's not
Yeah,
contagious anyway.
killed
And
that
then
old
the,
white fuck.
the same media that didn't give
Good
a
job.
fuck about BLM doing that to Ron Paul is the same media that is like building up this AOC thing to make the right look bad. It's
Oh yeah, it
and
was
then
on every news
yeah,
story that played
and
yesterday.
people fall for it. They're in this same reality.
And
And again,
she tied it to, and which is also horrible. She tied it to her being sexually assaulted in the
yeah,
past. She tied that in, right?
sexually
So,
assaulted, lots of clicks, everyone looks.
right,
And
and that's not,
I don't
like,
deny
it's
or whatever
fucked
her.
up. Like I said, I don't even want to, like, talk ill of that, because I'm
Me
sure that
neither.
that's super fucked up.
What I'm getting at is always the way the media covers it, and then the people that fall for the two realities are the same people ruining it for everybody. And if people just clicked, that media would have no more power because they'd be like, let me look more into this and see if AOC was really in danger. Let me look more into
Right.
this and see if, you know, more violence happened at the Capitol riots than
Versus
for
the
the.
BLM protest.
Yeah, because you're talking about the Capitol riots. The BLM protest happened because police violence, systemic racism. The Capitol riots happened because people don't believe a fair election happened, and now we're being run by Biden and Kamala, who are been terrible in crime. And smart people know shit's about to get worse. Let's just occupy. Like the amount of people that occupied the space is so much bigger than the amount of people that like went in or did any. It was like 60,000 people. How many people were there? It was a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
And this little flock of people got in. But that's the thing I think as undercover agents is the wacky dude with the horns and shit. I think those people are set up to go do this, allowed to do it, while the media professionally captures it and is ready to run narratives across the board. Meanwhile, it's like three people, and then like 60,000 people are outside.
But you sound like a crazy, but like I'm just saying, to the normal person right now, you sound like a
Sound
crazy
crazy.
fuck. But then you look at the Maryland, so you look at like Marilyn Manson from back then, and it's so
Charles
many.
Manson?
Yeah, Charles Manson. Jesus Christ,
Marilyn Manson.
a bunch
Yeah.
of shit came out about Marilyn Manson within the past 2 days,
And
actually.
it's such an easy joke
Uh,
to make. Like, are you surprised? I see it all over. Like guy, the demonic monster guy turns out to be a monster.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's he's fucked up, but and
Super fucked up.
he's claiming though that they were all consenting. So I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I haven't looked into it enough. Anyway, my point was that, yeah, you talking about them being plants and them being CIA assets
Or even
for
MK
this.
Ultra mind controlled people who are
Right.
just like
Yeah.
have been
Broke,
dosed up by some
dosed up.
agent.
It sounds crazy, right? Talking about it now, but then you
Shit
talk
happened.
about Charles Manson from back in the day, and we've been far enough removed from it from a year historical perspective that you don't sound crazy like discussing that, right? But it's the same government, right? That did it back then that could be doing it now, and
With
that's
30
what's
or 40 more years of research and a lot more technology to do it. Like,
right, and probably a lot smoother with it as well.
yeah, like social media, super smooth with it, right?
Yes. Can I refresh my coffee real quick? It's only gonna take me a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, I'm going to go
I
grab
know
a
I know we
drink.
don't have long, but let me go grab a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Yep.
I am back with a fresh cup of coffee.
Cool. Where were we?
We were talking about, well, we were ranting and we were talking about how the same government that did the shit back with Charles Manson could be doing these same setups now. That's why it's not. That's why it's stupid to say you can't even question it, question the narrative. And then in terms of MK Ultra, we were talking about Frank Olson and how Frank Olson had his supposed suicide and kind of what led up to that.
The
He was
patient that jumped out the window?
No, he wasn't a patient. Frank Olson actually worked for the CIA.
Oh,
I mean, do you know that story? I mean, I can go through it with you real quick.
yeah, go through it.
All right, so I'll try and I'll go ahead and
Because
just
no, I
recap again.
don't know the story.
So he was one of the first scientists assigned to the secret U.S. biological warfare laboratories that worked with Harold Abramson, and they worked on those aerosol technologies, ways to spray the germs or toxins on enemies to defend against and to defend against those types of attacks. In 49, he traveled to the Caribbean for Operation Harness, which tested the vulnerability of animals to toxic clouds, which is kind of fucked up. The next year, he was part of Operation Sea Spray, in which dust engineered to float like anthrax was released near San Francisco. He regularly traveled to Fort Terry, a secret army base on Plume Island, off the eastern tip of Long Island, which was used to test toxins too deadly to be brought to the U.S. mainland.
Whoa.
And that was the period when senior Army and CIA officers were becoming deeply alarmed at what they feared was Soviet progress toward mastering forms of warfare based on microbes. So we always do all this shit as an excuse to try and stay ahead of the arms and intelligence race of other countries, right? That's always the excuse. Their alarm led to the creation of the Special Operations Division. Rumors about its work spread through the office and laboratories. Olson learned of it over an evening game of cards with a colleague, John Schwab, who, unbeknownst to him, had been named the division's first chief. Olson's specialty was the airborne distribution of biological germs. According to one study, Dr. Olson had developed a range of lethal aerosols in handy-sized containers. They were disguised as shaving cream and insect repellents. They contained, among other agents, staph enteroxin, a crippling food poison, the even more deadly Venezuelan equine encephalomyelitis, and most deadly of all, anthrax. Right. Further weapons he was working on included a cigarette lighter, which gave out an almost instant lethal gas.
Wait, hold on. This guy was making anthrax, and then all these years later, it was the Middle Eastern terrorists who... Wait, no. Who was it? The anthrax build up to 9/11.
Yeah, well, he was not working on anthrax. He was working on distribution methods of anthrax.
Oh, how to get it, like put it in bullets and darts.
Because he was an expert in airborne distribution of biological germs.
So, well, the guy before 9/11 missed the memo because he used fucking envelopes.
Yeah, that guy was a fucking moron. This dude was a real motherfucker. Like I said, he was working on cigarette lighters, which would kill you, lipstick that would kill you.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was all like poison devices was the craze at that time. Yeah.
Right.
Go on. I want to hear the other shit.
And then he actually made a pocket spray for asthma sufferers that induced pneumonia. So by the time he stepped down as chief Special Operations Division in early 53, complaining that the pressures of the job aggravated his ulcers, he joined the CIA. So he stayed with that same division, which was officially part of the Army, but it functioned as a CIA research station hidden within a military base. That's where he came to know Sidney Gottlieb, the person who ended up running MK Ultra. And he met his deputy, Robert Lashbrook, there. Gottlieb was the CIA's chief poison maker at the time. And over 2 decades, he oversaw medical experiments and special interrogation projects in which hundreds of people were tormented and many minds were permanently shattered. During this period, there was an obsession at the CIA, which was to control the human mind. And the prize would be nothing less than global mastery.
Ooh.
So that was kind of the idea behind MK Ultra in the first place. So let's see. Gottlieb wanted to discover how much LSD a human could take. Could there be a breaking point, he wondered, a dose so massive that it would shatter the mind and blast away consciousness, leaving a void into which new impulses or even a new personality could be implanted. That's pretty dark. Let me see here.
It's wild that you can do that with a human mind.
You can't. He later stated that his work in MK Ultra was a failure, and they couldn't come up with anything. Now that's what he said.
That's what I was getting at. That's that official story,
right?
Because, yeah, they did find stuff.
All right. Let me see here. I'm sorry, my notes got disorganized as fuck.
Well, did you do it or did the CIA do it?
The CIA probably did it.
Have you thought about encrypting all your notes in a blockchain folder?
I have not. I'm just using the default Notes app and trusting my operating system's built-in security currently.
Who was the propaganda director of the Nazis?
I don't know. There was we talked about that in our Operation Paperclip episode, I believe.
Yeah, that name, Sidney Gottlieb, is such a familiar name. Joseph Goebbels. That's why it seems familiar.
So let me just read from this story I found from The Guardian about Frank Olson, which kind of goes more into depth about what happened between Sidney Gottlieb and Frank Olson, where Gottlieb ended up dosing Olson, right? So as Thanksgiving approached in 1953, Olson received an invitation to gather on Wednesday, 18th November, for a retreat at a cabin on Deep Creek Lake in western Maryland. This retreat was one in a series that Gottlieb convened every few months. Officially, it was a coming together of two groups: 4 CIA scientists from the Technical Services staff, which ran MKUltra, and 5 Army scientists from the Special Operations Division of the Chemical Corps. In reality, these men worked so closely together they comprised a single unit. Blah 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 blah. The first 24 hours of the retreat were uneventful. On Thursday evening, the group gathered for dinner and then settled back for a round of drinks. Lashbrook, which was Olson's boss, Gottlieb's deputy, produced a bottle of Cointreau and poured glasses for company. Several, including Olson, drank heartily. After 20 minutes, Gottlieb asked if anyone was feeling odd. Several said they were. Then he told them he'd spiked their drinks with LSD.
Is anybody feeling a bit odd? That's so amateur.
So it wasn't well received news. They were very upset. Olson became especially upset. According to his son, he became agitated and was having serious confusion with separating reality from fantasy. Soon they were carried away into a hallucinatory world. Gottlieb later reported that they were boisterous and laughing, unable to continue the meeting or engage in sensible conversations. So they were tripping real hard.
That's a very professional way of putting it.
Yep. The next morning,
boisterous and laughter. How did he word that?
They were tripping balls, is what they were doing. Boisterous and laughing, unable to continue the meeting or engage in sensible conversations.
Yeah, try saying that when you're tripping. I'm unable to engage in the meeting and have whatever he said.
Super. Yeah, so I think that kind of broke Olson's brain, though. So the next morning, they were in a little better shape. Olson headed back to Frederick, Maryland, but by the time he got there, it says he was a changed man. The next morning, he showed up early at Fort Detrick. His boss arrived soon after. Neither were in good shape. Olson began pouring out his doubts and fears. He appeared to be agitated and asked if he should fire him or if he should quit. He eventually was persuaded that resignation was an extreme reaction. MKUltra had been going on for about 7 months at this point, and it was one of the deepest secrets that the government had. So you can imagine that they're probably getting a little antsy that Olson's kind of having these crazy thoughts like, should I quit? Or should you fire me? Like after getting dosed with LSD, right? This motherfucker might break down and actually start spilling the beans on this stuff.
He became a liable asset.
He became a liability. Is basically how I'm reading into this. He had spent 10 years at Fort Detrick and knew most, if not all, of the Special Operation Division secrets. He'd repeatedly visited Germany. He was one of the Special Operations Division scientists who were in France on August 16, 1951, when the entire French village, Pont Saint-Esprit, was mysteriously seized by mass hysteria and violent delirium that afflicted more than 200 residents and caused several deaths.
What? Wait, can you read that again?
All right, so there was this French village that was Pont Saint-Esprit.
Okay.
How do you say that, Dylan?
They had a coup d'etat and they changed the name to Pont d'Esprit. I don't know, Esprit?
Pont Saint-Esprit. Esprit.
Yeah, sounds good.
Pont Saint-Esprit. Well, it was mysteriously seized by mass hysteria and violent delirium that afflicted more than 200 residents and caused several deaths. The cause was thought to have been poisoning by ergot, the fungus from which LSD is derived. But I looked more into that, like kind of outside of this story, and
Dude, ergot?
it is now thought that they dosed that the CIA was involved and dosed that town.
Whoa. Whoa, dude. Ergot. That reminds me of the guy interviewed on Rogan who found evidence in a ritualistic ancient chaff cup, drinking cup for the ritual.
Yeah.
Of the beer and ergot and like other stuff smashed up. They found like the
Oh
residue
yeah.
inside, and then like proved that hallucinogenics and these trippy states, I think midnight shade and like a couple other flowers or other ones
I
that they
heard this
use.
episode. And he was
Yeah,
talking about the Greek wines and everything as well.
yeah, like they mashed it up with certain flowers that would make a hallucinogen. And it was part of their rituals, and like it was kind of speculation for a while, but he found some hard evidence about it. So that's weird that LSD comes from ergot, one of those things the ancients smashed up in their alcohol to be boisterous and laugh, unable to engage in meaningful conversation or the meeting, i.e., trip balls.
Trip balls. Yes. So they thought that this town got
Yeah,
poisoned by ergot, but
yeah, right.
well, there was a story, and I'll pull that up after we finish going over Olson. But there was a story about that too. Anyway, so he was there. He was part of that. So he knew shit is basically what they're saying. He spent a lot of years at this military base as head of this secret operation. Um, his colleagues said he was not scared to say what he thought at all. He didn't give a damn. He didn't pull any punches at any time.
I don't give
And
a
so
fuck, Nate Diaz. I don't give a fuck.
we'll do a little fight talk before we end this too. But let's finish going over Frank Olson.
Yeah.
So Olson's doubts deepened in spring of '53. He visited the top secret microbiological research establishment at Porton Down in Wiltshire, where government scientists were studying the effects of sarin and other nerve gases. On May 6th, a volunteer subject, a 20-year-old soldier who was dosed with sarin there, began foaming at the mouth, collapsed into convulsions, and died an hour later. So afterward, Olson spoke with about his discomfort with a psychiatrist. So he's starting to break down mentally. He got dosed with LSD. He's seeing the CIA do all this fucked up shit. He saw this 20-year-old soldier die after getting dosed with sarin gas. A month later, he was back in Germany, and on that trip, he visited a CIA safe house near Stuttgart, where he saw men dying, often in agony from the weapons he had made. After stops in Scandinavia and Paris, he returned to Britain and visited Sargent again. Immediately after the meeting, Sargent wrote a report saying that Olson was deeply disturbed over what he had seen in CIA safe houses in Germany and displayed symptoms of not wanting to keep secret what he had witnessed. He sent this report to his superiors with the understanding that they would forward it to the CIA. Sargent later said there were common interests to protect. So this guy is seeing the CIA do all this fucked up shit. He's starting to break down mentally, and people are starting to say, "Hey, this guy might not want to." He's showing signs that he's not wanting to stay quiet. He's wanting to go ahead and speak up. Anyway, we'll fast forward a little bit there.
He's not the guy that got accidentally poked with the poison umbrella, is it?
No, this is a different guy. Olson's.
That was a different story.
That was just a dissident. That was just to kind of set the stage for. That was a Bulgarian guy, a Bulgarian dissident who had spoken out against communism and gotten killed by one of these spies. So I was telling that story initially just to kind of paint the picture of this spy craze that the world was in the post World War II era. Anyway, let's see. After 5 days after being dosed with LSD, he was still disoriented. His boss at the Special Operations Division got leave to report this. Gottlieb offered to bring him in for a chat. Olson still seemed confused in certain areas of his thinking. Alice Olson was told that Abramson was chosen to take care of her husband because he had to see a physician who had equal security clearance so he could talk freely. So Abramson was not a psychiatrist, but he was an MK Ultra initiate. He knew that Gottlieb knew that Abramson's first loyalty was to MK Ultra, or as he would have put it, to the security of the U.S. And that made him the ideal person to kind of go into Olson's mind and see where his mind was at. So a week had passed since Olson was given LSD at the Deep Creek Lake. He planned to return to his family for Thanksgiving dinner. The day after seeing Abramson, accompanied by Lashbrook and Ruette, he boarded a flight to Washington. And MK Ultra colleague was waiting when they landed. They got into his car to drive to Frederick. Soon after they set off, his mood changed. He asked that the car be stopped. Olson turned to Ruette and announced that he felt ashamed to meet his wife and family because he was so mixed up. So yeah, he's basically having fucking mental breakdown, more or less, because of all the shit he's seen. He's feeling terrible about life, and his brain is still scrambled from getting dosed by Gottlieb 5 days earlier at that outing together. So he asked, Ruette asked, "What do you want to do?" He said, just let me go up on myself. "I can't do that." "Well, then just turn me over to the police. They're looking for me anyway," he says. Ruette suggested Olson return to New York for another session with Abramson, which he agreed to. So they took a taxi to Abramson's weekend home on Long Island. Abramson spent about an hour with Olson, followed by 20 minutes with Lashbrook. The next morning, Abramson, Lashbrook, and Olson drove back to Manhattan. During a session at his 58th Street office, Abramson persuaded Olson that he should agree to be hospitalized as a voluntary patient at Maryland's sanatorium. And then Olson and Lashbrook left, registered at the Statler Hotel, and they were given the room 1018A. Over dinner at the Statler, Olson told Lashbrook that he was looking forward to his hospitalization. He mused about the books he would read. Lashbrook later said he was almost the Dr. Olson I knew before the experiment. The two returned to their room. Olson washed his socks in the sink, watched TV for a while, and laid down to sleep. And at 2:25 a.m., he went out the window. So.
What?
Yeah.
Washed his socks in the sink.
Washed his socks in the sink, watched TV for a while, and laid down to sleep. And then at 2:25, he went out the window.
He just jumped out?
Supposedly.
He was in the room with the other guy, right?
Well, there was one other guy in the room, right? And I'm not going to finish reading this whole story. I just wanted to kind of set up where his mind was at and everything whenever he... Let me let this cat out the fucking room. Hold on.
Meow. Man. So this dude is going crazy. And then
he's going crazy. He's seeing the CIA do all this fucked up shit. He's with the head of the MK Ultra, Gottlieb, and he's with Abramson, and
they just had a meeting, and
declared
he was sane.
They declared he needs to go to a mental hospital. So he's like, all right, well, I'm down to go to a mental hospital. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be reading these books. He was in a good mood, right? He was happy. Like, look, I'm going to go get help for the mental break that I'm having. And then he ends up dead at 2:25 a.m.
You think they threw him out?
Oh, if you read further into it, he actually had wounds that were, that couldn't have been related to the fall out of the window.
Like consistent with a struggle? Right,
consistent with a struggle. Why would he have washed his socks in the sink and done all that? His son actually was the reason this article got written, because his son looked further into it, because he doesn't believe that he committed suicide. He believes he was killed. There was a phone call made to the room, because they had operators back then, and the operator reported on like taking a phone call right after it happened, that got to the room, and it was from Dr. Abramson's room, and they basically said it was something went along the lines of this: well, he's gone. And then Abramson goes, oh, well, that's too bad. And that was it. That was the extent of the conversation.
The operator had that on the phone call?
Yeah, well, the
Oh, they
operator
called each other.
They had to connect the room, right?
They called each
This was
other.
back in the
Okay.
day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Whoa, well, he's gone.
Anyway, so he was basically killed by the CIA because they were worried that he was gonna spill the beans on the whole project.
And the official story is he jumped out because he was going crazy.
Yeah,
And
that's the
everyone
official
bought it.
story.
Wow.
Yep, he just knew too much. He's seen too much. He was having a mental break. They couldn't risk having him go to a hospital to get help for his mental illness or his mental break that he was having, so they just took care of it.
Yeah, so instead of being responsible for your actions, you just go ahead and throw them off a balcony and wipe
Yeah,
your hands clean because you run all the media anyway. They're going to bow down to you because
yeah, it's fine.
everything. Now I'm broad stroking here. But yeah, the CIA is like the source of seed money for most every major institution and stuff.
The CIA is you think is seed money for every major institution?
So check this out. Maybe you know this, but what I mean is that's why I said I'm broad stroking here because not like every major institution, but the CIA was conducting an experiment in the early 2000s to fucking collect everybody's data, everything about everybody. And it was called LifeLog. And on the same day LifeLog was shut down, February 4th, 2004 or something, was the same day Facebook was made. And Facebook received seed money from the CIA. I don't know how to prove that, but and then what happened with Facebook with the Cambridge Analytica scandal? They got everybody's data and sold it. They accomplished what the CIA program was trying to do.
What the fuck?
So yeah, like I wonder like how much seed money does Amazon have from CIA?
I don't know. That's crazy. And right now, Apple and Facebook are really getting into it right now about that, about their ability to just collect data unknowingly from its users.
Yeah.
And we're as a company, Apple's putting a hard line in the sand with them with our software, basically not allowing that to happen. And Facebook they're going hard right now in the media about. Anyway, we're going back and forth about that specifically, and just the amount of data that's collected on us on a just on a daily basis, man. Everything we do is just so fucking insane. Like Apple put this thing out called "A Day in the Life of Your Data" on National Data Privacy Day or World Data Privacy Day the other day. And it was pretty insightful about all the trackers that use you at any given time during every app that you're using. So go check it out. It was pretty cool. But yeah, I agree with you that I could definitely see that the CIA as being one of the companies, or I'm sorry, a government agent that funds all of these companies. And I was just kind of trying to look it up to see, hey, can we find some actual some actual facts there. So it looks like CIA runs a venture capital firm called InQtel. And so apparently that is the venture capital firm that has invested in companies like Facebook.
Okay, yeah. And the Saudi Arabian prince owns like 3% stake in Twitter, which is a pretty large percent of such a big company.
Yeah.
Like rulers of the world own large amounts of shares of these private companies that should do what they want. Why the fuck, if you're talking just business, if they're a private company, they could do it. Okay, they're just doing normal business. Then let's look at it like that. Why the fuck would the Prince of Saudi Arabia and the powers that be that have stock in this not control narratives from the top down that benefit them. So even with that perspective of like they're a private company, they could do that. I believe they're under the thumb of the government, and this is all psyop stuff, and it's not. Like it's not Jack Dorsey helping the world. It's some CIA handlers saying you fucking censor that shit right now, and you put Katy Perry trending because we want people distracted while Hillary Clinton is deposed because we can't have this shit come out because we're all going to prison. You know what I'm saying? So the algorithm changes and you start getting banned. And even if it is private company, the fucking powers that be own large shares. So why wouldn't they be? And it's not even because of business. It's because of like political rule. They fund it, they own it, they pressure it, they control it. The narratives and everything happens benefits them.
Yeah.
It's like I don't see how people don't get it enough to just not mock it if you talk about it. That's like where I come from every time. It's like if you talk about
don't
this
even mock. Yeah, just don't.
People
mock
just
it.
mock it. It's like, dude, are you not paying attention? Like you cannot believe it, but don't mock it and be like like that. If someone talks about the CIA running social media.
Yeah, you're a right-wing pro-Trumper.
Yeah, don't look now, but your never reading books is starting to show. People that are not awake. It's like, okay, you don't read, you don't use your brain.
Right.
You don't use your brain. It's weird. It's a weird world.
It is a weird world. Well, we got about like 18 minutes. I know you had some notes. You want to save those for?
Yeah, let's double header this whenever we can. Sunday night, we can do the next one, or
I got practice Sunday night, so maybe Monday night. We could do it.
Yeah, let's do that. And I want to try to do 3 this week. We'll double header this one, and then Wednesday again. Try to find some current events.
Yeah, we just get on here and talk some shit.
Yeah.
Cool with that. How about those fights? How about the Max Holloway fight, first of all?
That was insane, right?
What the fuck?
I'm the best boxer in the UFC. Boom! And he's slipping. That was crazy. He's so good. He can do that.
He's fucking good. He looked really, really, really fucking good.
Dude, would you take your eyes off of a guy like Calvin Kattar to talk shit to the analysts?
No.
No.
Well, I wouldn't take my eyes off of
anybody. Like,
yeah.
How good do you have to be that you're flowing in the zone like that?
He was in the fucking zone, dude.
That's like playing crazy stuff on the drums, twirling my sticks at the same time, and talking to people. It's like, at very least,
he's looking better than ever, man.
Really. Dana White thought Calvin Kattar was gonna die afterwards. He was really worried. He should have stopped that fight. He should have stopped that fight in the 4th round, Herb Dean. There's a lot of debate still going on about that, but Dana White said, he said it reminded me of one of those times where the fighter takes such a beating that they die afterwards in the locker room. He said, I was worried that was going to happen to this kid, the beating he took. I can't believe the corner didn't stop it. He couldn't believe the coach didn't stop it. The ref didn't stop it. Because that's how much Max Holloway beat the fight. Afterwards, Dana went up to him and said, don't talk to anybody. Don't do anything. I want you straight at the hospital. And Dana gave an executive order. Get this guy to the hospital. He goes nowhere else.
Holy shit.
The hospital. Yeah. That's how bad Max Holloway beat the fuck out of him.
You think Herb Dean's going to get in trouble?
No, because it was at the same time a fair call to let it keep going.
I mean,
he gets in there, fight back. He's giving him
you have to show that you can fight back, right?
So he was still there fighting back. But at the same time, when you're outclassed like that, who in their right mind? See, the refs, they have to be very well studied on the fighters to know who they're dealing with. They study these fighters before they go do an event. They study the fighters, and I got a guy right here that can take a lot of punishment. I need to keep that in mind in this fight, so I don't stop it too early because this guy fights back a lot. Or this guy, they know that stuff. So it's Max Holloway's never been dropped in his whole career. What makes him think at this point in the 4th or 5th round, Calvin Kattar's going to land this one shot? So, like, with that being said, it's like, just stop the fight.
Yeah, it was over at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was no winning for him in round 4.
No.
He had lost every round. I mean, crazy, man. But Max looked fantastic though. Looked really, really good.
Claimed to be the best boxer, and then the following week, Dustin Poirier proved that wrong. I loved his post fight after he knocked out Conor. He said, "I beat the kid twice. I just knocked out Conor. I'm the best boxer." It's like, oh,
yeah.
That was crazy though, man. I couldn't believe that the small town, hometown guy got the big win.
Crazy.
It's like bigger than the Saints winning the Super Bowl almost, you know?
For us, yeah. For us,
like
it is.
Anderson Silva got knocked out, or when Holm got knocked out. It's like,
I tried to tell you how popular that fight was, and I think it was one of the best pay-per-view sales that they've had. Right? It was like number 3.
Yeah.
I was like, let me go watch this fight at Buffalo Wild Wings, just right like 2 miles up the road from my house. Whenever I turned into the parking lot, I was like, I immediately knew. I was like, nope, I'm not gonna be able to watch this. First of all, there was nowhere to park, and there was literally a fucking crowd of people outside of Buffalo Wild. And I was like, let me just go see, because I'm just whatever. I'm by myself, and my friend Jeff was gonna come meet me.
It seems like the restaurants are pretty open there.
Yeah, they're pretty open.
There was no crowds here for nothing.
No, there was a massive crowd there. Standing outside, whatever, socially distanced, but a massive crowd. So I walk in, and I was like, let me just see how long of a wait it is. It was like 2.5 or 3 hour wait.
Basically after the fights.
Yeah, I was like, all right, you know what? This ain't gonna work. I just went home and then, got a VPN and did my thing. You paid for the fight though, and it dropped on you.
I did. I bought the pay-per-view. It crashed. I kind of went viral on Twitter, though. I was complaining to ESPN. I got a bunch of likes, so I was like, hey. And then Dustin Poirier won, so I was like, look, I don't need my refund. Give the man his pay-per-view points. My girl Amanda Ribas got knocked out, though. Well, I didn't like seeing that.
Fuck, man. There were some good fights.
And, yeah, that Michael Chandler-Dan Hooker fight, I was really shocked. I was positive Hooker was going to KO him with the knee. Michael Chandler.
We were texting right before that fight. He's like, yep, 100% done. This is done with a knee. He's going to be KO with a knee first round, I think you were saying.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe it, man. Totally counted out Michael Chandler. Dude, I mean, he just walked, because Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker just went 5 rounds, and Dustin never dropped him. Michael Chandler KO'd him in the first round with like a punch. So it's like, how powerful is Michael Chandler? Or was Dan Hooker depleted from a bad weight cut? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's...
Exactly. You don't ever really know how the camp went, how the weight cut went.
Yeah, you never...
How compromised is he?
He's a tall fucker. He could be welterweight. Easy.
That goes back to the whole thing, like you and I were talking about how whenever Stipe got knocked out by DC, how compromised was he from Francis that fight before?
Yeah, right? And he had a busy schedule before that. He was fighting.
So you don't really know how durable they are when they walk in there. But
yeah,
I mean, still, that was a nice intro into the UFC for Michael Chandler, right?
Yeah, they're comparing his debut to Anderson Silva when he debuted, knocked out Chris Lieben, and went straight to a title shot. Beat Forrest Griffin, became champ.
We'll see if he. Who do you think they're going to put him up against next?
I think what's going to happen is, it's interesting because you can't give Conor the rematch against Dustin for the belt because you can't give a guy on a loss a title fight to the guy he just lost to. And then Michael Chandler just beat the guy Poirier beat. So that doesn't get him a title shot. Gaethje just lost against Khabib for the title. That doesn't get him a title shot.
Right.
So you got
Well, who has the title, right? It was Khabib still has the title, right?
Yeah, and it's fucking Dana holding it up. That fight should have been for the title.
Yeah.
So now the talk is like crown Dustin the champion now, because DC was crowned champion without fighting when John Jones popped, was stripped, and then it automatically went to DC.
Right.
So it's like they can do that procedure to just crown Dustin the champ retroactively.
He's
I think
still just holding
fight,
on. He's just waiting for Khabib to do something.
Yeah, it's really fucked up because like
holding up the whole division.
Yeah, some bullshit. And I mean that would have been an even bigger fight. So I kind of like because Dustin knocked him out. That's the first time Conor's gotten
ever been knocked out. Yeah.
Now, in fairness, Nate Diaz was gonna TKO him until he shot for a takedown and got submitted.
Yeah.
Right. But just to be fair and square on the feet, knocked him out because Conor went down and his arm was locked and he didn't block those follow-up shots that ref saved him. The ref saved him from. Like he was going to KOville. You know, he was out. Yeah. He got up like what happened? Yeah. It's the first time he's ever been KO'd, and it's like it really feels like that era is over. Like Dustin Poirier showed up and closed the chapter. Like Conor has to redo what he did if he wants to be great. And what's interesting is Conor's greatness was built in the featherweight division.
Right.
And then he won the belt and jumped the queue to the lightweight division. It was him versus Rafael dos Anjos, and that was like 4 years ago, maybe 5. Since that fight was made, the lightweight title has been tied up because Rafael broke his foot, who was the champion at the time, and then Conor took on Nate at welterweight and then rematched. And the whole time the title's still sitting there with Rafael, who lost it to Eddie. And then Conor won it off of Eddie, and then as a year and a half, he fought Floyd. And then they stripped him. So it's like this, the title's been tied up for a long time, just floating up here. And it's like, it's still tied up because it's crazy. It's been tied up for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So, but Conor, straight up, that's the closing of a chapter.
I like the way he handled it, you know. I think he handled it like a man, but you're right. It feels like it was the closing of a chapter. Like, I mean, what does he have to do? Does he have to go back and fight anymore anyway? He's so fucking
He doesn't.
rich.
But that's what I was saying.
Just call it.
For Conor to rebuild that greatness, he's got to do what he did again, but he did it in the featherweight division. He's never climbed through the lightweight rankings. He didn't go through all the killers that Dustin's been going through. So Conor, this was like his first real test of fighting an actual current contender in the lightweight division. Not skipping the queue for Eddie was kind of a tailor-made fight for him, a guy that's going to come forward and catch a left.
Yeah.
Khabib, everybody loses, you know.
Everybody loses.
He got the win back against the Nate. He was tapped out the first time. So, like, all his losses were caveated by he got tapped. He didn't get KO'd.
Got KO'd this time.
KO'd, first time ever. Shut that shit down. Get out of here.
Yep. End of an era, man. Which you get off the sport, so you gotta.
End of an era, or the beginning of a new one, because Conor's got to do that again through the lightweight division. He still has a chance to be great.
If he still has the want, man. If he still has the hunger to want to fucking keep doing this,
he's got to go through some guy. He's got to go through Gaethje. He's got to run through that whole division the same way, or he's got to KO Nate. He's got to do something no one's done.
And some killers too, man.
Yeah, man. He's got to.
Not like he has easy fights to get to run through that division.
In my opinion, the trilogy with Nate would be a good fight because he can still KO the fuck out of Nate. Because Nate's taking a lot of damage, man.
Yeah.
You know, he fought Anthony Pettis. He fought Jorge, got beat the fuck up. If they do that fight at lightweight, you know, you could see a deteriorated Nate get knocked out. And that would be a first. So then Conor would be back on cloud 9, like, whoa, he's doing the impossible again.
I think he needs like two more big wins under his belt before he starts to get some of that win back.
Good fucking luck. Justin Gaethje's leg kicks are like insane. He didn't survive Poirier's leg kicks. He won't survive Gaethje's.
No. That dude's a monster too.
I don't think Tony is going to get knocked out if he fights Tony, because Tony took all those shots from Gaethje. Gaethje hits hard, so
he hits really hard.
Conor's going to have to go 5 rounds with Tony, or get knocked out or tapped out. It's a tough road for Conor. Really might
That's what
be
I'm saying. It's like, is it even worth it for him to put himself through that shit at this point? He could go off and be a celebrity and ride off into the sunset. He's
too
already
many big fights though. There's still big fights. There's 2 trilogies. I think
there
he's
is
gonna
big
fight more.
fights. Well, he said he's going to fight again. He did not say he's done. He said,
Yeah.
I'm going to fight again in 2021. It's like, all right, cool. Let's see it. You got to start grinding, man.
Yeah.
Just hope he doesn't get himself too hurt along the way where he can't fight anymore.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing how this unfolds and the title finally being untied. After the next fight for the title should be like free now. After like 4 or 5 years, it should be.
Yeah.
We'll fucking see. So I was listening to Golgothan.
Yeah.
The Plug-Yell's new record.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Leech.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah. You enjoying it?
Yeah.
When's it come? When you think it, well, I don't know when it's coming out. We're
I want to buy it, have it.
We're in negotiation with some
Oh, you gotta wait.
labels. Right. Yeah, we gotta wait. So,
okay, maybe
don't know yet.
We
have a contract, and we're just trying to negotiate all the details and everything. But yeah, how would you think of the tone? You thought the tone was pretty good?
I did. I like it's super heavy. I like the 2 takes of the guitars, how they're like the dual take. It has that dimension, which I like. I thought the vocals are right in the pocket and real. It sounded good, man. It really did. No bullshit. Yeah. It was heavy and chunky. It was fast and shreddy. I liked it.
Good, man. Thank you.
It sounds different from the stuff I've heard before. It sounds like
we
come into like it's still Golgothan, but it just sounds like a really solid like sophomore record or something. Like step up.
Well, I mean, we've been, this lineup is the current iteration. We've had Eddie for 1 EP so far, and now John for 2. So we're starting to kind of get a feel for writing.
Who's that?
Eddie is the drummer.
Oh, okay.
And then John's the other guitar player.
Okay. New members.
Well, John's not really new. John's been in the band for like 3 years, I think it is now.
Y'all have been playing for a long time.
Yeah, and that's another thing I think that
like a decade
since 2013 or 14. Not quite a decade, but getting
7
close.
Years. Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, and I think I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think bands get better like that over time.
Yeah, it's the only way to do it.
Right. It's like anything else, man. Like it's your 10,000 hours, right? Getting those reps in together.
Exactly.
And so we've started getting better with writing it. We're super efficient with writing. In fact, actually, that record we got that shit done super quick. And that's one thing I really like about having Jai in the band is that we can just I can go over to his crib with a couple riffs, and we'll have a full song shit out by the end of the session, with demo drum tracks and everything done all together at once. So
badass.
Yeah, we have a really efficient workflow, and it's easy for us to constantly pump out content. So it's been fun. I'm glad you like the record and you think it sounds good, and hopefully we'll get to release it soon.
Yeah, I'm glad I have the private link.
Yeah, like don't share it with anybody, but I wanted to, let you check it out and let me know what you thought.
Definitely. I only listened to the first couple songs, put it on this morning.
Yeah, I figured I'd just send it to you, but I figured we'd get a chance to listen to it before the podcast. We could talk about it a little bit.
Definitely. So people tune into Golgothan. Good shit happening. The artwork is badass.
Yeah, it's a guy named Rudy did the artwork for us. He did a really fantastic job.
Do you think, how much does he charge, and do you think he'll do my band's record coming out?
I'm sure he could, yeah. John knows him. I believe it wasn't much, man. Believe it or not, it was only like $300 for that.
Okay. Set me up with that guy soon, because Alfred's going to need some really cool artwork for our next record. We just put up our second jam tape called, I had to re-edit the album title, so it'll probably change. Right now it's called My Balls Is Hot.
My Balls Is Hot. I love it. Shout out to Derek Lewis.
Yes. So Teddinatin Vol II, My Balls Is Hot. It's available everywhere. You could also purchase it if you want to support. Our first jam tape is up everywhere. What's the name of that one? American Spirit Cigarettes. Our first record is up, Shred City Bodega. Got a second record coming out. And we got a show March 5th. Back in the game,
Whoa,
baby. At the
playing
venue
live again.
in Denver. If you're in Denver, anywhere around, come to the venue. Say Illuminati, Squatty Potty, and I'll buy you a drink.
Fuck yeah.
I'll pay your way in. So come out to the venue. Wear your mask, okay?
Social distance.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So
well, I'm glad to hear you playing live again, man.
I know, I can't wait. Our last show was March 6th last year, so like we didn't
Like,
make it a whole
year.
Yeah, right under a year. So we didn't go a whole year without playing. We can at least say that.
We have.
Shaved it by a day.
We have.
That's crazy. Denver's got a show before Lafayette, right? Y'all gotta have some stuff out there.
No, they're doing like this shitty bar in New Orleans is doing a show. I won't say. I just call it a shitty bar, so I won't say the name of it. But yeah, they're doing shows in New Orleans. I think we're also being a little hesitant to play shows because we want to make sure, like, people do get a little wild around here, so we want to make sure when we do play the show that it's in an environment where everyone feels somewhat safe. I've seen some of the videos from those shows in New Orleans, and it's not it's basically pre-pandemic conditions. They're like, fuck it, we're going wild here. No mask, no distancing, we're fucking moshing shit together, which is cool. I'm
the virus
ready to get back
is
to
real.
It is real.
It can fuck you up if you're susceptible, but
yeah, I'm not particularly worried about it, but like, I don't want to.
Yeah. So I do have to run. I gotta go.
I know you gotta go.
So,
work. So
great episode. MK Ultra. Man. Don't sleep on that shit out there, people. There's real stuff happening. We're gonna double header, and I'm gonna share the stuff I got. If you want to know, more about how
the deep dives into it.
I got this sauce. You want to talk about how this affected the Charles Manson Summer of Love? A lot of good stuff. That's coming up next. So.
All right, man. Well, I'll talk to you later on this week.
All right. Peace, man. Take care.
Peace.